Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of the Get Unstuck series. I'm Sarah Archer. I'm a career and leadership coach and also have suffered from imposter feelings, still do to be honest with you, work in progress. And obviously today we're talking about the hidden ways imposter syndrome can show up in successful women. So if you're here with me live, please do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. That's always great to know. And if you're watching on catch up, which I know a lot of people do, then hello to you as well. If you've got questions about today's topic, do pop them in the chat. If you're watching on replay, tag me in and then I'll come back and answer them at the end or after the session. So the Get Unstuck series, I started it, I think about 2 years ago now, because I know when I was a senior leader, when I was HR director, it was very hard to find space to think about my leadership development, my career development in the working week because it's so full on. So I thought I'd give you 15 minutes twice a month, every Wednesday, just to have a bit of space to think about those things that are important to us and maybe get some insight, get some inspiration, get some tips or tools to take away. Sessions are always quite short, about 15 minutes, and they'll be practical as well. There'll be something you can put into practice straight away. And like I said, today's session is looking at those hidden ways that imposter syndrome shows up in successful women. And what I want to do is help you identify what might be showing up for you so you're aware of what you're feeling and how it can drive your behaviour and what you can think about doing in order to change that. And I am running an imposter syndrome webinar on the 25th of November. So that's called How to Break Free from Imposter Syndrome and Shine as a Leader. I'm going to pop the link in the chat now. So if you want to kind of dive deeper into this and get more tips and techniques about how to manage that, then do please sign up and join me, because obviously today we're not going to go in depth about the areas and what you can do, but I am going to give you one tool that you can take away and try out today. And now I've been thinking a lot about this particular topic because I do see it a lot with the clients that I work with. Not what I call kind of full-blown imposter syndrome, but just those kind of invidious ways imposter feelings get in the way and kind of cause unnecessary stress, exhaustion, and can impact your career in a way that you don't want it to. In fact, I was talking to somebody about it recently, and they were saying they didn't feel that imposter syndrome had held them back in their career, but it was the overthinking and procrastination that went alongside it that they were just finding completely exhausting. It was taking up a lot of cognitive energy, and that's what they wanted to work on to free themselves from it, essentially. Because we probably have carried it around with us for a long time. And I was thinking about me. I mean, I do get imposter feelings as a business owner, because as a business owner, you're constantly being visible, and that can trigger imposter feelings. But I do remember when I was in my first leadership role, I was the head of HR in a human rights charity. And although I sat on the senior leadership team, they were all directors, they were older than me, they were more experienced than me. And I remember going to meetings feeling like, who am I to be here? Am I good enough? Do I know enough? And I had to lead initiatives that I hadn't done before. And the result was that I over-prepared for everything. I took on too much. I felt like I had to do everything to kind of prove my worth. I was constantly comparing myself to those other more senior directors who'd got more experience than me. And I was anxious and definitely kind of overthinking everything, second guessing myself. And ultimately, unfortunately, it led to burnout. I had to take 3 months off work. And I had to, really understand and learn from that experience in terms of what was not helpful for me. And this is why I'm kind of passionate about helping other senior leaders, other women, to identify those unhelpful behaviours that are driven often by imposter feelings, and make changes before it gets to that point where you are. experiencing burnout. So if we think about imposter syndrome, I don't really like calling it a syndrome, it's not really, it's imposter feelings. The definition is that it's a psychological pattern, and it's a pattern that is often around thinking you're a fraud, you're not good enough, you don't know enough, all of those kind of unhelpful thoughts. But the good thing about patterns is that they can be changed and they can be broken. And the first thing is self-awareness, so understanding the pattern, understanding the triggers. So just being present today and just hearing about some of the hidden ways that imposter feelings can present itself can be helpful at then being able to kind of manage that more effectively. Because often these things, these behaviours, these feelings, we've had them around for a long time and they've become quite unconscious. So it's just bringing it more into your consciousness. So I think I've got about 8 hidden ways that I'm just going to run through briefly with you. And then I'm going to give you a mini mindset exercise that you can try out. But obviously, as I said, I am running this webinar in a couple of weeks. So if this is something that really resonates for you, then please do join me in the webinar when we can go into this in more detail. So the first one that it might show up for you is that kind of over preparation or perfectionism. So feeling that you've got to spend extra time creating the best thing you could possibly do in terms of, I don't know, a piece of work or something that you're writing about or preparing for a meeting. And like I said, I used to do that big time. The downside to that for your career is that you can be a bit more risk averse because you are wanting to make sure everything is 100% before it's delivered or before it's presented. It can mean it can take so much more time. It can result in procrastination. And ultimately, it's very tiring and it can lead to burnout. Our second one is downplaying our achievements. So crediting things that we've done to luck or to the team, rather than kind of owning your achievements, owning your role. And obviously the knock-on effect on your career can be that people don't really see your value. They don't, because you don't own it, they maybe, give that recognition to somebody else, and you're not seen as that contributor that you actually are. The third thing, and I've definitely been here, is holding back your opinions. So staying silent in meetings, not contributing, not sharing your insight, not sharing your expertise in those meetings because you don't want to get it wrong, you don't want to be exposed, you don't want to be seen as not knowing as much as you think you should know. And obviously the knock-on effect of that is you're invisible, you're not seen as a contributor, you're not seen as somebody who has an opinion, who is valued for sharing that opinion. And obviously that means that you're less visible when it's promotions or opportunities that might be on the table. You're not people's top of mind when they're thinking about that. Kind of linked to that is our fourth one, which is avoiding visibility. So saying no to opportunities that might stretch you, might stretch your skills. So you're staying in your comfort zone because it feels safe, and you're not taking advantage of opportunities. And obviously that is detrimental because it inhibits your growth. You're not being stretched, you're not developing, you're not growing. And again, you're not seen as that individual who wants more, who's hungry for taking on extra responsibility or opportunities. Then we've got over apologising, and this one sometimes we're not even aware that we're really doing it, but in terms of our communication, both written and verbal, we might be apologising far too much. We might say, sorry, could I just make a point here? Sorry, I just feel like I need to add to this, and you don't need to say sorry to make those points, but sometimes we want to do it because we want to make other people in the room feel better about our contribution. But the impact is obviously you seem less confident than you actually are if you are apologising. So it's just noticing some of the language that you might use that isn't helpful, that is driven by imposter feelings. Our sixth one is that comparisonitis, so constantly comparing yourself to others, which is what I was definitely doing when I was in that head of role, but I was working alongside the directors. I was measuring my success against my colleagues, against theirs. Sometimes it's against your peers or people you used to work with. And what we want to be measuring our success against is our own success criteria, because if we measure it against other people, then we're engaging with their success criteria, not with our own. And obviously, this will distract you from your own personal growth and your own development, because you're not following what's right for you. You are being distracted by other people's success. Our seventh one is second guessing small decisions and overthinking things. And I think, because I've just done a poll, or I'm doing a poll on imposter feelings at the moment, and overthinking and self-doubt are currently showing as the two top ones in terms of how it manifests for people. And that overthinking about minor choices, but also some of our big decisions, just means we get into procrastination. We start second guessing ourselves, doubting ourselves, talking ourselves out of doing things. And the impact is that decision fatigue, that cognitive fatigue, and also missed opportunities, because we're just taking too long over things. By the time we've kind of done all that thinking through, maybe the opportunity has passed us by. And then our last one is taking on too much to prove ourselves. And I definitely did this. So saying yes to everything, or kind of micromanaging. I know for me, I didn't have the experience and the confidence to take a big picture view when I was in that role. It was setting up the HR function role, so I felt like I wanted to do everything straight away. And I couldn't be strategic and say, okay, the first 6 months we need to be focusing on this, and then in a year's time we'll be able to do that, with foundations will be in place. And if you're just taking on everything, you're getting pulled into the weeds. You're not being seen as a strategic leader. You're being seen more kind of operational. And obviously, it can lead to burnout again, because you're just taking on too much without really having the capacity to do it. And we're not seen as being a strategic contributor either. So I'd love to know, if you are here with me and you feel comfortable sharing it, what resonates with you most out of those 8 things. I'll just quickly run through them. We've got over preparation or perfectionism, downplaying achievements, holding back our opinions, avoiding visibility, over apologizing, constantly comparing ourselves to others, second guessing or overthinking, and taking on too much. So what resonates for you? Please don't say all of them, because that's a lot to deal with. The difficulty with challenging these things for ourselves is that it can play into our fear that actually, if I stop that over preparation, or if I stop taking the time to look at those decisions in detail, actually, am I not going to be as successful? Is my success down to doing those things in that way? And that's our imposter feelings kicking in. But it's a real fear that if I change this approach, will I be as successful? The answer, of course, is yes, because you're going to be letting yourself do more in a more effective way, or be more influential in a more effective way, without that kind of constant baggage that's kind of weighing us down, because a lot of these behaviours are not helpful to us. So the mini mindset exercise I've got for you to try out, recognizing, of course, that these feelings, these thoughts, these behaviors have been with us for a long time. So these are never quick fixes when we're coming to think about imposter feelings. But just to think about trying out something like this can be really helpful. So what we want to do is bring that unconscious inner critic, because often these feelings, these behaviors are driven by that inner voice that is saying to you, you're not good enough, you're not experienced enough, you don't know enough, you're not as good as them. All those unhelpful messages that we're sending to ourselves are often driving those behaviors and those feelings. So if we can just shift that a little bit, that can make a big difference to us. And so we want to start off by just bringing that inner critic, because it's often unconscious, we've had it so long, more into the consciousness. And a way to do that can be to name that inner critic. So you can actually say, okay, I can hear when I'm saying I'm not good enough, that's my imposter voice speaking to me, or you might actually give it a name, like call it something, because it's just separating it from us, so we can recognize our imposter feelings are kicking in, and that voice that I'm hearing is my imposter voice. And then what we can do is present evidence to discount whatever it's saying to us. So you can start to collect evidence that you are good enough, that you do have those skills, you have got the experience, you do know what you're doing, and you can evidence that to your inner critic. And I've got an example of this to share with you. So I worked with somebody this year who had a very, very strong controlling inner critic. And so we worked through this particular approach together. And she actually decided to name her inner critic. So, for example, I'll just give you a random name. She called it Diana. And what she did, because she was quite autistic, she actually drew a picture of what Diana looked like to her. And then she broke it down into what Diana's behaviours were. So, but Diana was really unhelpful. She was mean. She was nasty. She said really unhelpful things. So she broke down the behaviours, and then she wrote down what the triggers were. So Diana is triggered. She's really loud when I do anything new, when I step out of my comfort zone, when I'm in meetings with people that I think are more experienced than me. So she just started to notice when Diana was present. And just by breaking that down, writing it down, drawing that little picture, it just helped her to separate herself from Diana. And she started to notice that Diana just wasn't there anymore. She just didn't really have that voice in the way that she'd had it before. Just by actually labeling it helped her to break free from that inner critic. And she did message me because she'd gone to a meeting, an external meeting, where she felt that everybody else in the room had so much more to offer than she did. And she started to notice Diana was kind of getting a bit vocal. But because she recognised what Diana was doing, she was able to say to herself in the moment in that meeting, actually, they invited me to this meeting for a purpose. I've got lots of things I can share that could be really helpful. And I know I'm as valuable a contributor as everybody else in the room. And so she just really helped to reassure Diana, because Diana was triggered out of fear. And she then went on and enjoyed that meeting, and enjoyed the fact that she'd been able to manage Diana in the moment. So it really is quite an effective technique. So it's just one to try out, just to see what happens, just to see if it shifts the perspective for you. And like I said, if this is something you want to work on further, sign up for the webinar on the 25th. You should see the link in the comments already, when we will work on this together in more detail. Because imposter feelings, they're sneaky, they're invisible, they're unhelpful to our performance, they're unhelpful to our career in general, and we do want to break free from them. And as I said, it's a pattern, so we can break free from them. Do take heart if you feel like you recognise a lot of yourself in some of those hidden ways imposter feelings show up. Then take heart that there are techniques, if you're prepared to put the work in, that will help you break free from that. So hopefully I will see some of you on the 25th. Thank you very much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you in my next live in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much for joining me.